Right, it's time to start the neck. Now the neck is the cream part that goes all the way around the back of the face, so it sort of starts in the cheek area, goes all the way up and round behind the ears, all the way around the cheek. So that, as you can probably imagine, is a lot of picking up and knitting. So I've talked about this in past videos, and I've deployed this little trick here, and what I've done is, rather than try to judge by eye how to space out, for example, the 14 stitches that I'm going to need to pick up on, between these 2 points here, I've broken it up into smaller areas so that, you know, it's just easier to estimate where to put each stitch. So I always put a stitch at each corner. Okay, now, like I said, this area needs 14 stitches. If I put a stitch at each corner, that leaves me 12 to find. I then halved that area again just by folding the piece in half and adding a little stitch marker at halfway point, and folded each of those areas in half. So I've kind of got quarters here, and if I've got 12 stitches, that means I've got to put 3 stitches between each pin, which is a lot easier for me and my poor brain to judge than trying to work out how to space out 14 stitches all in one go. So I strongly suggest you do that, because it just makes things a lot easier for you. I'm going to pick up and show you where to pick up your stitches, and we'll have a chat as we go. So we're working in the cream yarn, which I think is yarn A, and whoops, and I'm going to immediately drop the needle, and just the same as we've done on all the picking up and knitting so far. So you know, you're familiar with that now, which is just putting your needle through the work, and I'm joining, and I'm quote unquote joining the yarn, not really joining the yarn, just flapping a loop around the end of the needle and pulling it through. So that's stitch number 1. That's one of my corner stitches, so it doesn't count as the 3 I want to make between the needles. So I'm now going to do 3 before I get to the next pin. So they're quite spaced out, but don't worry too much, because that doesn't sort of cause any problem as far as I can tell from the one that I've already made. And as I say all the way through, the more you knit, the more gaps even out. Okay, so I've done 3 up to that point. I'm now going to do another 3 up to this point. So it's quite a, I think it's quite a large space for a relatively small number of stitches. So like I say, the sort of chunking it up has helped a great deal for me. So there's another 3. So that's all I'm doing all the way around, and I'll have put, hopefully, can't remember, but I will have put the pins on the other side as well, to make sure that when I come down the other side of the face, I've got some help on that side as well. So there's the 3 between that stitch, those 2 pins. There's a bit of a gap there. I might go back. So let me show you, if you go back, it's really not a big issue. Oh no, I don't know, that's okay, that sort of looks relatively even, that's all right. So I've got 3 stitches to do between this last point. Actually, probably taking them out as you go is a pretty good idea, I think. I think this is the trickiest part, because like I said, there's quite a lot of space to fill with not many stitches, and that feels a bit counterintuitive, I suppose, but it works out beautifully in the end. Might just take that one back, I think that's too far in. I'm gonna go under the next one. For some reason I had a bit of a saggy stitch. That sounds super offensive, doesn't it? So I've just changed that one. 2, how many have I done? 2, 4, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Okay, I'm going to do 1 in there, and then I'm going to reserve that last one for that very corner where that stitch marker is. Okay, so that's 14 stitches around the first side of the face. Now obviously, sorry, I'll just take that out. You will see that I've started on Bunny's left cheek. Okay, so just a reminder of that. Where are we going next? Okay, so next we are going to do 5 stitches along this cast off edge up to the corner of the ear. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got about 7 cast off stitches. So I'm going to miss out that first one. Put my needle under the 2 bars of the cast off edge. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, let's go into the, miss that next one as well. This is much tighter, so it's going to give me a nice finish there. 2, 3. Don't worry if it's a bit of a wiggle to get your needle in, that's good. 4 and 5. Okay, so it's gone right up to the corner of the ear, if you can see. The next thing you're going to do is, if you've got your bunny facing you, if you fold the ear down, you're going to pick up along the cinnamon edge of that ear, and you're going to pick up, how many? 5, another 5 along the back of the ear, which is great because what you're doing here again is dispensing with any need to actually sew anything up. So that's good. I'm all for not sewing things up because it's another area that is not my favourite and best. 1, 2, only because I'm not very good at it really. 2, although I do love mattress stitch as we discussed. 3, it's magic. 4 and 5, and I'm trying to get right on the edges of those ears so that everything is encapsulated. What a beautiful word. 5. Now I'm just going to do 1 stitch between the ears. Try and position it such that you don't have too much of a hole in the work if you possibly can. Okay, and now from this point onwards, everything should be familiar because we're just going to reverse it. We're going to go across the back of the ear, across the cast off edge and round the cheek. All right, so 5 across the back of the ear. Going to start nicely in that corner. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So when I look at that, when I'm knitting that, it's all going to be totally enclosed. It's very clever. Right, and 5 across to this corner again. I'm probably just going to carry on picking up and knitting now because there is no surprise here. I think the thing that might have caused pause at best is this bit across the back of the ears, which we've now done. So you've seen us go around the cheek, me go around the cheek, across the back of the ears, between the ears. So it's sort of straightforward from now. So I'm going to finish picking up and knitting the rest of the stitches and make sure I've got enough, and I'll see you after that. Right, so if you thought it looked weird before, it looks really weird now. I like it. So if I turn my needle over, you can see I've got a very scrunched up stitches on there. Yours won't look like this, it's just because I'm using a short needle just so I can get it all on the screen for you. But there's 49 stitches on there, and I know because I have checked. And we're ready to start knitting the neck of the bunny. Now there's nothing unusual or difficult in the knitting of the neck, so I'm not going to go through that row by row with you. Every alternate row, every right side row, every odd numbered row is a purl row, and on your knit rows you've just got some shaping. So you're going to start off by decreasing So it sort of pulls in a little, and then you're going to increase again to kind of come out again. So your shaping is done in a really straightforward way with decreasing and increasing. So you're familiar with all of those. We've done those so far. The only thing, there is an interruption at the end of row 10 where you're going to place some markers. So I'll probably just meet you briefly at the end of row 10 to remind you of that, and then we'll finish up the neck. So see you in a bit. Right, I've just finished row 10 of the neck and realised it's become the back, hasn't it, in our pattern? It becomes the back at row 10. So I've just finished that lovely increase row. It's working up a treat, and I wanted to I wanted to stop and show you that I'm just going to pop a pin either end, or a stitch marker if you want, whatever you want to put on the end here. We're going to put one at each end because that's going to be the position of our foreleg, or the bunny's forelegs, when we work them later. So that's all you need to do, just mark that point in the knitting each end. We're going to do the same again actually at the end of row 19, but I will see you towards the end then anyway, because we're going to start working with 2 yarns held together. So I'm going to finish this last little bit and then I'll see you at the end. Right, I'm at the end of row 19 of the neck and back, and I've done the same as before, which is to say I've put a marker at each end of the row. So if you look here, at the end of row 10 I put my marker, and now I've just put another marker at the end of row 19, and that little point, or that little space between those 2 markers, we're going to be using later on to work forelegs, but not right now. Right now we're going to be doing something lovely, which is we're going to be breaking our yarn. So cream yarn A is gone, and we're going to be working with yarn B, which is the cinnamon yarn, and at last D, which is the fluffy yarn. Fluffy. By the way, please don't worry, you're going to have a lot more than this left. This is my second bunny along, so, you know, don't worry about that, as if you were. So all we're going to do is hold the 2 yarns together. I'm sure you've worked stuff like this before. Gosh, it's really not rocket science. You don't really need to be shown this, do you? But if you are unsure, this is what we're doing. Okay, I'm just literally holding 2 yarns together, and as soon as you start knitting with that, that will kind of become sort of, you know, second nature really. So let me just show you. Nothing, no meteors will hit the earth or anything if we actually put two yarns around at once. So I've got the cinnamon there and the fluffy mohair, Kidsilk, no, is it mohair? Kidsilk Haze there, and I've knit a stitch. What you'll find as you work this, and you can see, oh, here's one I made earlier. I had to reach then. I have to make noises now when I reach or do anything that is a slight exertion. You will see that you get this kind of effect where every so often a bit of the colour will show through, so it's a nice speckled effect, and you can't see it very well, but you'll feel it. There's this lovely fluffy haze on the back. I know we've already got a fluffy haze going through, but there's a really nice, you know, it's just giving a little bit of a variety between the areas of the bunny. And in real life you would, wouldn't you? You would have areas where their lovely fur is a little bit different. So I love this. I love this as a technique for introducing a little bit of variety into your knitting. So I've just held it together, held the yarn together. I'm not holding it together in general. Held it together, and you can see what I mean, can't you? It's a sort of a, you know, it's not uniform. All the stitches look a little bit different, and it's a great effect. So there again, for this part of the bunny, there's nothing difficult. We've got no wraps and turns or anything at all like that. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and continue to work his back, his or her back, using these 2 new yarns, and we'll meet again when it's all done at the end of row 40. Hello, just stopping by here at the end of row 41, because we are now into hind legs. Yes, so we're going to be looking at, here we go, this sort of thing shortly. Okay, so if you look, I know I've got a tail on here and you will eventually get one, but if you look, we're going to start, oh, you can't see at all, can you? Shall I show you? You're going to start thinking about doing hind legs in a minute. So I just wanted to pop in and say, don't forget to place a marker at the end of each row, just to, when we come back to that, you're going to need to reference where you are at this particular point in the pattern. So I'm going to do that at the end of row 41, each end of row 41, and then I'm going to press on. Let's have a little look. I'm going to press on, and we'll probably meet again at the beginning of the short rows, I think, because all of this is all very straightforward. It's some sort of TV telly almost, isn't it? I know you've got a bit of knit two together and stuff like that, but it's nothing that you can't handle. So I'm going to carry on until the end of row 51, and then I'll see you there. Hi, now I don't know whether I have been able to judiciously edit out what I said about when I was going to join you again or not, and in case I haven't, I've come back to you earlier than I may have told you I was going to, because I've realised there's a chunk of stuff happening in the later rows of the back and hind leg section that I probably ought to go through with you. Not least in row 48, we've got some markers happening kind of mid-row to indicate where our little tail is going to go, or Bunny's little tail is going to go. So on row 48, I've done the first part of the row, which is the knit two together, knit six, slip one, knit one, pass, slip, stitch over. And I'm going to place a marker, and I'm not going to place a marker in the work per se. I'm just going to mark it on the outside of the work. So again, I'm using safety pin here, but do you know what? You know, we had the this stuff, the yarn that I kept the stitches on before. You can even just stitch a little loop of yarn through there, anything at all that you can kind of discard after. You don't need anything special at all to mark, to use as stitch markers in this situation. So please don't worry, don't go rushing out and buying a ton of safety pins or anything like that, because a little bit of cotton will do just as well. Okay, so that's the first part for the tail. I think then we've got to do 5 stitches, and we're going to put the other side in. 4 and 5. So again, I'm just going to pop a little safety pin over on this side as well. All right, so I think I'm going to just finish this row and do the next row, and then I will come back to you at row 50 because we've got some casting on and things to do. So I'll finish this and I'll see you at row 50.